Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our continuing adventure here in the Middle East. Today, we're in Egypt and have reached the pinnacle,
Literally.
of our trip here in Egypt, the Great Pyramids.
Welcome to Living Phase 2.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Nancy, and we're empty nesters striving to live life to the fullest.
And we are living that full life, checking off a dream bucket list item, a visit to the Great Pyramids on the Giza Plateau.
We sure are, friends, and boy, do we have a big day planned today.
Yeah, we do. Not only seeing the Great Pyramid of Khufu and the other two pyramids here, we go inside one of those pyramids and show you what it's like. You get your dream camel ride. You get to ride a camel and get some amazing pictures in front of one of the pyramids. Then we head off and see the Sphinx. So we are going to show you all the tips and tricks of getting the best picture there in front of the Sphinx. Then we're going to show you where it all began at the Pyramid of Saqqara, the original step pyramid designed by Imhotep himself. And this is a day to remember.
It really was. This was a highlight on our trip of today to get to see the pyramids and all. But well, our day started out and we're at the Hyatt Regency Cairo West, where we've got buffet breakfast included. Many of the hotels here include breakfast, and boy, they did a fabulous job with their buffet. You could just have almost anything you wanted here, really. Yep. And so our guide met us though after breakfast. He was there for us, and our driver, and we are heading out to the pyramids. So we go through kind of the little suburbs of Giza. One thing that I'm rather impressed with is how good their highways are, certainly in comparison to what we have here. I mean, there's no potholes. It's just, it's smooth driving.
Yeah, our guide actually even commented how much money they're spending building the highways and the infrastructure, and he wasn't necessarily happy about it because of all the debt they're incurring, but the roads are great. I mean, we got around very easily in that area. So.
We really did. Well, we got to the pyramids, and one of the first things that's going to happen is you have to go through security. So let me explain just a little bit about how this works here. Your car or your van, bus, all of the bags have to be removed. So pro tip here, friends, the less you can take, the better, because otherwise you've got to send everything through security. So there are people here who are transferring from this location to another location, which means they had not only to take their backpacks or their purses off, they had to take all their suitcases and everything off and out of that car to go through the x-ray machines. So the less you have here, the better. But once you get everything out of your car or van, then it goes around and it meets you on the other side, and it's going to pick you up. You go through security and then you get back into your car or van, and it takes you then to the parking lot, which is right there at the base of the Great Pyramids.
You know, here again, Egypt has certainly been more crowded or had more tourists than Jordan.
It has.
So you can take a look and kind of, contrast that. I mean, even Petra, we talked about how there was nobody there. Obviously, we're at one of the top 5, I would say, tourist sites in the entire world here at the Great Pyramids. So there are crowds here, but I actually was a little surprised it wasn't terrible. A lot of buses, they go through what we just talked about. They drop people off. They tell them, go out, get your pictures, get back on the bus. We got to go see the next thing. And, we're fortunate enough to have plenty of time that we can explore and take our time and take pictures, that we're not that rushed.
We've said, really, in some ways, it was a blessing when we were on the world cruise that we were not able to come here to Egypt and to the pyramids, because we were supposed to, but then because of all the fighting, we ended up having to reroute and go all around Africa. But the fact that if we would have come here on the world cruise, we would have seen the Great Pyramid, and that would have been it. And then they would have rushed us back to get back on the cruise ship. So here we're able to spend a really nice amount of time. So It really was a blessing in disguise.
It really was. And in fact, our guide, he does those cruise ship excursions. And he told us over and over, he goes, you guys are so lucky. He goes, I always have to rush my cruise ship passengers so much they don't get to see a tenth of what you guys are seeing. So keep that in mind. We're not saying if you're on a cruise ship and this is your opportunity to see the pyramids, absolutely no question.
For sure.
Go do it. It's a very, very long drive, a very, very long day. It's anywhere from 14 to 16-hour day to go from the cruise ship to come here. And it would be worth it. But if it's possible for you to do it on your own, like we're doing here, and just take a dedicated trip to Egypt, we would certainly recommend that.
Absolutely.
Well, we started the day with our guide up in front of the pyramids, and of course we get out of the van, and he's like, wait. He said, I know you want to take pictures, I know you want to run up, I know you want to see everything. He said, just give me a few minutes, let me give you some background, let me tell you what you're seeing, let me give you a little history. And he was really good about that. We've mentioned that in the past. And so he told us about Khufu, he told us about the pyramids, the building, honestly the best places to go take pictures, where to go. And this is where we started discussing going into the pyramid. You can go into the Great Pyramid of Khufu. You can go into a couple of the others as well. And this is where the pros and cons kind of come in, and we had that discussion with our guide. In addition, we had been watching a series called The Story of Egypt. We'll link to that below, and we're going to talk about it in more detail in a future video. So we'd been getting some history and background, and the Egyptologist in this series did go into this pyramid. And what you can expect is it's anywhere from 100 to 150 meters. You go in these crouched down, small, tight tunnels with hundreds of other people in there. And at the end, the payoff is an empty kind of black room. And that's all you really see. And then you have to work your way crouching all the way back this, 100, 150 meters back out. And it takes a lot of time. It can take up to an hour to go into the pyramid and back out of it. And so this is where we made the decision with our guide and under his recommendation to go into a different pyramid, which we're going to show you here in just a minute, and save the time for other touring of other sites. And you will certainly see it paid off in both of the other tombs we went into today.
Well, and those of you that might be new here, just finding us here for the first time, I have osteoarthritis pretty severely in both of my knees, and so that would in my back as well. So that would have been a struggle. You can see here later in the video how much I had to crouch down just to go into some of these other tombs, but that would have been
it would have been tough.
It would have been tough,
Yeah.
Let's show you what our time at the Giza Plateau was like. So we walked around and we were able to touch the Great Pyramid.
That was quite a experience. It was almost surreal to be able to touch the 5,000-year-old piece of history.
The pyramid used to be covered in tile.
And you can see some of it here still at the base.
It's hard, even in these pictures, to imagine the scope of how large these pyramids are.
You can see here where people are walking up the side of the pyramid. They're going inside the pyramid, as we mentioned earlier. Now this is going to take anywhere from a half hour to an hour for the round trip journey, in and back out. Note you're not allowed to climb up on the pyramid unless you have a ticket to go inside the pyramid.
We walked to the corner of the Great Pyramid to take some amazing pictures.
Our guide was really good about showing us the best photo stops.
Next, we walked around the back side of the Khufu Pyramid to the Khafre Pyramid.
You can start to really get some beautiful photos of all the pyramids as you walk between them. The Khafre Pyramid is famous for still being capped with its tile. They didn't strip it down completely like they did the others.
Now we're on our way to the Menkaure Pyramid.
Now here is a pyramid we are going to delve into the depths.
The Menkaure Pyramid, you're going to see a big gash in it.
Now this gash was created when a former Muslim leader here in Egypt decided he was going to tear down the pyramids, and they started that work and realized it was way more than they could do and gave up.
This is the pyramid that we went inside. Now take note, friends, it is steep and deep.
So as we climbed down, ducking and crawling almost through the chambers, we made it down into the inside. And these burial chambers are much more detailed than the ones inside the Grand Pyramid of Khufu.
I'm in a pyramid. How cool is this?
So inside the Makari temple, much like the Pyramid of Khufu, it's rather stark and plain, but it is larger with multi-levels that you can visit.
And as a note here too, it really smells kind of stuffy inside.
It does.
It smells old. Well, we literally crawled out of here and back into the sunlight.
Well, that was really just amazing. I mean, words can't hardly describe it. Our guide certainly led us correctly. This was a great tomb to go inside and see. As a side note, it was about $6 each to go inside this tomb and inside this pyramid, and it was amazing.
But what was really nice is it was far less crowded. There was just a handful of people here. And when we got out of the pyramid, they were actually closing it off. So we got in right at the right time.
Yeah, again, we've said this quite a few times, having a good guide that knows all the hours and situations and all that. And he was actually warning us when we were walking around the Great Pyramid of Khufu. He's like, we need to get over to Menkaure. That's the tomb I want you to see. And they close, in the middle of the day. They actually close these quite frequently to kind of let the pyramids breathe, right? So there's not so many people in them. And he knew that. So yeah, we were some of the last people to go in that day. So
maybe that's why I thought it was so stuffy.
Yeah,
I needed to breathe a bit.
It could. Well, from the Menkaure, right next to it, you got to do something you've been talking about and waiting for, and it's one of your bucket list items.
It really was. I was excited about this. I got to go for a camel ride. Well, we both did, and it really was a neat highlight. We went on the 15 to 20 minute camel ride. You could go for as long as an hour, and they would take you out over the plateau, and so you get a nice view from a distance of the pyramids. But we were up close, and our camel guide, he knew right where to take us. I mean, he knows the pictures and the places to go to get the best pictures.
Hey Nancy, what are you thinking right now?
This is so freaking awesome. This is the coolest thing ever. And we had so much fun on those camels.
Yeah, and additionally, your guide will take photos for you. He's going to, and he's an expert in the camera. Those guys know how to handle iPhones and Android cameras.
Yes, they do.
And they know, they'll have you make some silly poses and things like that. But and that's all included in the cost of your camel ride. One of the things to note is that they will expect a tip at the end. And in fact, it's very likely they will not let you off this camel until you hand them a couple dollars. So have a couple of dollars in your pocket, $1 to $2 for the tip at the end, and so they will actually let you down off the camel. Now, our guide, of course, they prearranged it with a camel operator that they know that their company always uses. So yeah, we still tipped him, but we didn't really have that trouble of getting stuck on the camel.
But we've heard people have. So.
Yes, so have that ready. Well, that was just an amazing experience and honestly a lot of fun too.
Well, now friends, it's time for us to go to the Great Sphinx. This is another real highlight that I can't wait to get to.
Right. So it's a small drive. We went back to our driver in our van. He took us around. Now the Sphinx is right kind of in front of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the Great Pyramid, and it's not very far from there, but you do have to kind of drive through the old town, and then there's a parking lot there that you get to. This certainly was more crowded.
Yes, it was.
It's a smaller area. You've got to go through kind of a narrow walkway. It is kind of neat though when you go through that walkway and you step out and kind of boom, there's the Sphinx. We were able to get some nice photos. We were able to look at it. This is not an area though, the viewing platform for the Sphinx, very crowded, lots of people, almost kind of pushing and shoving.
There was
Yeah.
this place.
You got to have a lot of patience here. And it took a lot of patience on our part. We were there probably, about 20 minutes or so
About that.
to get our pictures. One thing we did note, there are a lot of people who come in and they want to get their Instagram shots. And so you have to have patience and work around that. You'll find your spot. It does help if you have a camera or a phone on a bit of a stick, so you can get up over some of the crowds to get some pictures or to get a selfie of yourself in front of it. But it's not a place you get to reflect a lot, because there's a lot of crowds there.
Now the Sphinx, we couldn't go up to it. We were kind of on a viewing platform up high. Now there were some tours you could have, if you wanted to, have prearranged with your tour company that actually take you down right to the base of the Sphinx, but we didn't do that. We just stayed on the viewing platform up high.
And additionally, we're going to get another view of the Sphinx at night. Well, how are they going to make sure they don't miss that?
Well, friends, it's because you will have subscribed and turned on those notifications. So, no, thank you, friends. We always really appreciate when you like, subscribe, and turn them on, because it lets YouTube know to pass this video on to others who may enjoy it.
Well, after our time at the Sphinx, we got our photos, we got back in the van. Now we're going to head to a place I'm actually very excited to visit. It's a little lesser known, but I'm doing my research on Egypt and the history of the pyramids. We are now going to head out to the famous step pyramid of Saqqara. Well, what is Saqqara and what is so important about it? Well, Saqqara is the first, it's kind of the father or mother or whatever you're going to say of all pyramids. So this is a step pyramid designed by the infamous, famous, amazing architect Imhotep. He's very famous for many things. He's an architect and a doctor and a writer and everything. And so he designed this step pyramid based on the concept that previous to this, the tombs were more of a platform tomb. They were more just flat, and they would then bury people down under this kind of flat platform. And then Imhotep, took that flat and then built it up. They started having mounds, and he built it step over step over step, and you can see that here. And that's what we're into here, is the complex at Saqqara. And there's multiple tombs, multiple pyramids, but the most famous pyramid, of course, is the pyramid of Djoser, and that is the step pyramid. But we're actually going to go down into the pyramid of, or the tomb. It's not really a pyramid, but the tomb of Yunus.
So it's really like we're going back in time now from the Great Pyramid. Now we're moving back in time to 2700 BC.
Now this was one of the reasons that our timing was very important at the Great Pyramids, because the tomb of Yunus that we want to go see, our guide was really excited to show us this, is only open again at a particular time, and we had a reservation actually to go in there, so we had to make sure we got here. But let's go ahead and take you into the tomb of Yunus, and we'll show you around this complex of Saqqara.
Well, we got our ticket and we started delving into the tomb. It's very narrow and steep. You really have to stoop over and almost crawl to get through some of the areas.
Now, one of the reasons this tomb of Yunus is so important, it's one of the only places you can see the Book of the Dead, and that is the instructions to get to the afterlife. And they're inscribed in hieroglyphics all on the walls of the tomb. Be sure to explore all the little side rooms down inside the tomb. A flashlight's very helpful.
Some of the inscriptions in the walls are made out of alabaster, and they actually will glow if you put a light up to them.
We were shown this by the guard down in the temple. The sarcophagus, the outer sarcophagus, is still down here too. It's quite spectacular to see. Well, after exploring each of the rooms, we headed back out into the sunlight, crawling and making our way up the steep ramps. Well, that was quite amazing. I just,
It really was.
again, having a good guide and knowing all these different tombs to go into and which
I'm
ones,
yeah, and I'm just still so amazed at how old these pyramids and these tombs are, and yet how much color and how, just how well preserved they have been.
yeah, 5,500
It's
years
crazy.
old. Yeah,
Yeah.
just amazing. Yeah, the blues and everything inside there were quite stunning. Well, now we're going to go ahead and explore the rest of the complex here at Saqqara. And we walk up and we're starting to head over to the Step Pyramid of Djoser. And out in front of it is a massive courtyard that used to be there for ceremonies and different events that they would hold with the people of Egypt and the pharaoh presenting himself. But we walked around that pyramid. Now, one of the things, this pyramid is a clay brick pyramid. And so it is deteriorating, and they are the Egyptians, UNESCO, everyone's trying to figure out how to save it because it's deteriorating rather rapidly now that it's getting more into the clay and everything. So they're trying to figure out what to do here. So one other reason, like we said in Petra, visit these sites as soon as you can.
That's right.
Because they're not getting any less deteriorated. Well, we walked around to the backside, and here they have a replica inside the original presentation of a statue of Djoser. And there's kind of a neat thing. You can look through an eye hole, and it shows you right directly into his face. And there's also a little window on the side that you can look through. Now, remember this, because in an upcoming video where we're going to show you the Egyptian Museum, we're going to see the original of this statue where they've moved it there. So we'll link back to this at that time as well. That was pretty neat, though, looking through those eye holes.
It's cool. Well, we walked through the complex, and there's many tombs here of advisors and relatives, people like that. And we went into one of the tombs.
Right. And it was really quite interesting to see. So this obviously not being a buried tomb, this one is at ground level. But one of the interesting things our guide pointed out was the door to the afterlife. And so a lot of these tombs will have an artificial door, and that's where the deceased would then, go through to pass through to the afterlife. I thought that was interesting. Well, we walked through the complex and it was time to kind of head to the exit. Now, one thing our guide did, we kind of walked backwards through this. So normally where you're going to see us going out, where all these massive, famous ribbed columns are here at Saqqara, normally you come in that way and you kind of walk around. But because we had to get over to the tomb of Yunus, we went there first and then worked our way backwards.
Right.
So we did kind of go backwards in time, or, forwards in time a little bit going here. But those columns were amazing. And again, there wasn't a lot of people there, so we did get some great pictures here with the columns. Well, that was amazing. Saqqara did not disappoint me at all. I'm really glad that I made sure that was on our itinerary, and I think anybody should have Saqqara on their itinerary.
I absolutely agree, for sure. So now it's lunchtime. It's actually past lunchtime.
Yeah.
It's time for a late lunch here. And so we were taken to a traditional Egyptian restaurant here where they're going to do traditional cooking and food. And they have these little grills on every table. So they're bringing out beef and chicken, and we're actually cooking it ourselves on our little table grill, in addition to having other salads and hummus and pita bread, things of that nature. But as we come into this restaurant, there are musicians that are there to greet us and for a tip always. Yeah. And so, they just embrace it. That's what I did. I just embrace it and have fun with it.
Well, I had so much fun watching you get in with the musicians. I just love that.
You should have jumped in.
Well, somebody had to hold the camera. Well, yeah, lunch was great. I enjoyed that a lot. Again, this was arranged, by our guide, by the tour company, so that they kind of had everything in place to us so that we could save as much time as possible. And speaking of saving time, this is where we were able to add something on. So this gets into tomorrow's video. Tomorrow we're going to see the two two main museums of Egypt. The Egyptian Museum, and that is where the relics of King Tut are located. So this is a don't miss. And then we get to see the brand new, and I'll say glorious, Grand Egyptian Museum, or as they call it, the Gem. We're going to go there. So we're going to actually tour those two museums in the next video. We're going to compare them, what's it like going into the new museum, and show you everything that you can see. And these are two don't miss sites when you're here in Cairo in Egypt.
They were pretty incredible, friends, so you're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.